This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to I'll Have Another Podcast with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm so grateful you're here today. Today, I have a really fun episode with my friend Jess Hofheimer. You are listening to episode 351. Jess just ran a PR, a 2-minute personal record at the California International Marathon. She has been on a journey, a very long journey. This PR was 8 years in the making. She ran a 3:11 in Boston 8 years ago. There's a lot of layers to Jess's story, but the one thing that rings true in this episode to me, and just through knowing Jess and getting to talk with her on runs, is that there's a lot of beauty in the long game. There's a lot of beauty in having patience and believing in the process. And Jess is going to talk to you about her process. She's going to talk to you about what it's like working with her coach, David Roche. And we also talk about her experience with disordered eating and how that has played a role in her life over the years, and how seeing a therapist has really changed her life. So I think that you guys will all take a lot from this episode. I know I did. And I'm honored to be friends with Jess, and I feel so lucky that I get to live near her now and go on runs with her. If you aren't following Jess on social media, go do that. She is Pace of Me on Instagram. She also has a coaching business. She's a great running coach, and she's the mom of 3, and she has a art business. So she is an artist, and if you follow We Run on Art, she creates these amazing, beautiful designs that are running related, relationship related. They're just so great. Go follow her and We Run on Art on Instagram. Okay, friends, today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Koala Clip. Koala Clip is the absolute best way to carry your phone on a run. I used it this morning. I use it every time I run. I just clip it to the back of my Razorback sports bra. And guess what? They also have sports bras and leggings and sweatshirts and shirts and tank tops. They have a great new line. I have their crop tights that I am loving. They fit super comfortably. They don't move around. And their sports bras are really cute too. Just very soft material, the perfect amount of padding. I'm so proud of Christina, the founder of Koala Clip. Go support this small business and get yourself a little something fun or a good gift. This is a great gift idea as well. I actually used my discount code for Koala Clip to buy my sister a Christmas gift this year. I got her a Koala Clip and one of the sweatshirts that Christina has to offer. Go to koalaclip.com, use the code ANOTHER10. That's another 10, and that'll get you 10% off your order. And if you are loving the show, friends, please leave us a quick rating and review. That is a huge help in potential new listeners finding the show. Hey, make sure you are also following me on Instagram. I just did an Instagram Live with Sarah Vaughn. We recapped her race at CIM. She won the whole dang thing and debuted the marathon in 2:26. You might have heard our pre-race interview here on this podcast feed. You can hear the post-race interview on Instagram. I am Lindsay Hine 626 over there. We had a 35-minute conversation that you can check out. It is in my feed over on Instagram. All right, friends, enjoy my conversation with Jess. All right. Yay! Today on the podcast, I'm doing an in-person interview with my friend Jess Hofheimer. Welcome back to the show, Jess.
Thank you.
I remember the first time I interviewed you. I was at my friend's lake house in Plymouth, Indiana, and oh my gosh, it must have been
2016.
Was it 2016?
It was 2016 because we had just moved to North Carolina, so it's easy for me to remember.
Wow. And that's so full circle.
Right.
Now that I live in North Carolina. I had no idea.
Crazy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So 2016, that was when you were like early on getting healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think it was, you know what, now that we're talking about it, might be 2017. It might have been a year that I'd been here because my kids were at camp.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, it was 2016 or 2017. And yes, totally right. I think I had already had my foot procedure. I know I had started working with Tawny to like do gut healing. Didn't I tell you all about that? Yeah. So yeah, because I had already met my friend Andrea who has ALS. And I remember we talked about that on the podcast. So it was 2017.
So I want to speed everybody up a little bit. Jess just ran 309 at CIM. Congratulations.
Yay, thank you.
And previous PR was 311. 311 what?
It was like 311. I want to say 56. It was just not by the chin. Like, what do you say? The skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
I got a 311.
And you were 309 what?
36.
Okay. I tracked like 4 people at CIM. You were one of them. And I mean, you could not have ran a smarter race.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm really proud of myself for that.
Did that make you nervous though? Because like even coming through the half, because let's just, for everybody that knows, Jess's goal was to PR. It was just a PR.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think we had talked about this on a run one time. Like I wanted to run the race I felt I was capable of, which would have been a PR, you know, I mean, and so I knew I could do it. And that's what I wanted. But yeah, in my heart, it was like, I want to run a race that is my fastest ever because I believe with all my heart I could do it and that I'm in the best place with running that I've ever been. And I wanted my PR, my time to reflect where I know I'm at because it just hadn't for almost 8 years.
Yeah. And you're like healthiest. Like,
yeah, my healthiest, my most like holistically like happy, you know, there are a lot of layers to that. And that's why I went to California and like did it the way that I did. So, I mean, yeah, I was nervous about the course, which I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you can run fast at CIM and it's true. But it's similar to Boston in that there's a ton of downhill in the beginning and like those first 6 miles, the first mile is like crazy downhill.
Really?
Yeah. And so you can get carried away with that and like run too fast, and then really be paying for it later. And when I was doing a lot of my pre-race like studying of things, a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, it's okay to be at marathon pace this early in the race because you have all that downhill. And that's just not typically how I race or I advise my athletes to race. And so I was just like, I really wanted to make sure I was focusing on effort and not being foolish. So, I just decided to trust that and hope for the best. I felt so good.
It's so cool to track people and see like the splits come in and your splits just like kept coming down every marker, which I will say I would take some more updates if these trackers
they didn't have a 10K split. I thought that was weird.
Yeah. Was it just 5 and then half?
It went from 5 to half.
I mean,
I think
no,
thank you. They might have done a 15K.
There was a 20 and a 30, and I'm like, that's too big of a gap. 10K right there.
I think it went 5, 15, half, and then like 20, 30, 40.
Well, let's just talk about that right off the bat then. Like how you stay confident knowing that the first half of the race, you're like slower than what your goal time is and believing that like this is the right plan for me and this is how I'm going to finish the race the strongest.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, every time I've run a really good marathon PR, I've done it that way.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to a point and like coach people to that. So I'm a believer in the negative split. Not only do you feel your best, but you usually run your best, you know. It's a hard thing to trust, like you're saying, but you know, and then like this course, like I said, with all that downhill, it was like, yeah, but if you're running by effort, won't you just be faster? You know, so I will say I was a little faster than I might have been even though I did run negative splits like that because it was so downhill. So in the beginning, like, so CIM is funny because there's a lot of uphill too. Like it's very rolly. I will say like training here in the Raleigh area, it was a blessing for that course because I think the steepest hill was mile 8 and the longest hill was mile 10. NCIM, and I literally was like, are you serious? Like I just like that's nothing compared to what's here. And so I really just, I was like, take it 1 mile at a time and hold yourself back. Like I have this like adage for myself and my athletes. I'm like, the first like 6 to 8 miles of the marathon, I want to feel like a caged animal. Like I am like literally just can't wait to like let it loose, and I rein it in, stay calm, and just kind of like be okay with people passing me, especially on those downhills. And then, but like, honestly, like when I came through the half and I thought, okay, like at this point I can like get like flirt a little bit with like being a little bit faster. I knew going into this race I was capable of anything between 7 and 7:15 pace, which is like a pretty big range. But I was like, if I run anything in that, I'll be happy.
In the second half,
the whole race. Like I was like, so in the beginning, I started out thinking I'd start around 7:30 pace and like just kind of see how I felt at that effort. The second mile, I ran a 7:30. That was my slowest mile of the whole race. And then I found that I was like just clicking off like 7:15, 7:16. Like they were just like clicking off at the same pace, like right around that for the first half. When I came to the second half of the race, I kind of pushed to like closer to 7-minute pace, and it felt easy. At mile 16, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I have this in the bag. And then I was like, you know what? Don't get too confident.
10 miles.
Jess, you still have 10 miles to go. And so, but then I was like, I had this conversation in my head. I was like, yeah, but you don't need to run any harder than this. And you have it in the bag. And I felt so comfortable. Like I was nailing everything, like my nutrition, my hydration, my body felt so balanced, and the weather was perfect. I wasn't fazed by the hills. By that point, I was through everything that they warned you about, like the hardest hills in the race. Except for I was a little concerned about rollers at mile 19. And then the last hill was like up this bridge around mile 22. And so I was like, I'm going to sort of stay in this like comfortable. And I just decided I wasn't going to race until after that hill. Which looking back, I'm like, I had more in me. I could have, because that hill was nothing. It was like a little bridge. I was like, this is a hill. It was just, everything was working so fluidly. So when I got to that bridge at 22, like I was clicking off like 7:02, 7:05 leading through that. And I saw my husband like just after that hill. And I was so happy to see him. And I don't really like use bad words. It's like, it's just something like in my nature. My parents raised me that way. But sometimes you use them, like Shalane did, and I used her word, and I was like, Robert, like I'm effing doing it. And he was videoing like a live photo or whatever, I think for the kids. I was like, oh no. But he was so surprised because like he doesn't usually hear me, I usually get like really awkward. I'm just not good at using them. But
so funny.
so I was just so pumped after I saw him. And then like once I made it through that, I just like kicked it up another gear. I was done taking my fuel. I stopped one time to grab some like hydration. And at that water stop, it was like so crowded and congested because so many people were walking. So I got like hitched a little bit slowing down there, but I didn't really care. And my last 2 miles were my fastest ones.
What were they?
Just under 7.
Wow,
like
under 7.
In the 650s.
That's incredible.
And I felt so good. Like that's what like I could, it was like, wow, this is amazing. I just can't emphasize enough how helpful it is to negative split a marathon, because I came across the finish line knowing I have faster in me. Like I could have, decided to race a little bit sooner. Maybe I would have had to go. I mean, I never went to a dark place mentally. I'm not the kind of racer that is like, I talked to my coach about this one time after a half last year, because sometimes I've wondered, like, do I need to go to like the pain cave or like this like dark place and like, make myself hurt. Like, that whole concept, like it doesn't work for me. And I told David, my coach, on
David
the call,
Roche, by the way.
he's so amazing. But on the call we had after a half last year when I raced very similarly, I wanted to talk to him about it. And I was like, David, I just don't, like, that's not who I am. And I don't know if, like, is that what it's going to take for me to PR? Like, do I need to make myself hurt like that? Like in this mental place, like, do I need to go, like, I don't know. I read Alexi Pappas's book and Jessie Diggins. She's like a cross-country skiing Olympian. And they talk about like pain and like,
Going there.
kind of like lights out. Like, I don't know what that's like. I told David, I was like, when I had my babies, I was like, epidural, like,
Same.
I want to have fun. I want to be present. I want to like soak it up and like know how like badass and like joyful. I mean, literally, this sounds so corny, but like at one point in my race, I was like, oh my God, I feel so beautiful. I feel so strong. Like I just was really being like my own hype woman in this way that like I hadn't ever experienced before. This ability to be like, you're doing it, Jess. Like you've got this. And it was fun. I had fun. And so coming across the finish line, feeling that way, and then having Robert right there, it was just so awesome. It really was an amazing experience.
It's like such a cool way to think about the marathon too, because I love that you say like, that's just not who I am. Like, I don't want to go to the dark place. Like, I want to run faster, but like, I don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
And that you didn't have to.
Yeah. You don't have to.
What did David say to you when you asked him that?
Like, oh no, you did that exactly how I wanted you to. He loved what I said. And he said like, he really does believe. And he had talked about this he and Megan in their book about, I think it's called The Happy Runner, or Happy Running or something like that.
Happy Runner, I think.
Yeah, it's so good. I haven't read it for a couple years, but I should pull it back out again. But, they really do believe, and I believe, like your best running comes from your healthiest, happiest, like most joyful self and like most present self. And it is drastically different for me. When I ran my 3:11 PR almost 8 years ago in Boston, I mean, I went to that race alone. My family stayed home. I was over 20 pounds lighter than I am now, and really disordered with my eating, with my relationship to my body and myself. Running was kind of running away at the time. And I felt like in order to be good at running, like clearly I needed to be lighter. I needed to be more extreme in these ways. And when I ran that race, I had to stop. I think it was mile 21 for some pretty bad GI issues. And when I crossed the finish line, yes, it was a PR, but I couldn't stand up straight. I literally like went back to, we were staying in a little like Airbnb, a friend of mine, and I stayed with her husband, her family. And I was like, on the couch alone, not alone, but not alone, because I had them, but like they all wanted to go out and celebrate. And I was in the fetal position on the couch. I had blood in my stool. I mean, I was really sick, and all I could get in my stomach was ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
Yeah. It's like ginger ale, but I don't know why they call it beer. It's like root beer, ginger.
Yeah.
I don't know. Megan, my friend, her mom was a nurse, and they went and got it for me. I couldn't go anywhere. Friends were all celebrating, and I literally couldn't stand up. My stomach was really messed up, and that's not how you celebrate. I wasn't taking care of myself, and that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I was really not okay. But it was so contradictory to be like, yeah, that's my best marathon. And I was really hurting myself, and yet it was celebrated because it was fast.
It was your PR.
And so that led me down this path of like, healing, which was a long road. But I got to this place where I was like, I know I can do this. And I wanted to do it differently. And so I did.
All right, friends, a quick break here to thank Beam for supporting this episode of the podcast. You've probably seen advertisements for Beam. They are amazing. Their Dream Blend is a delicious nighttime powder that has sleep-enhancing vitamins and minerals in it. I love the Dream Blend. They have a white chocolate peppermint flavor right now. It helps me sleep. It is a great nightly routine. It has nano CBD in it as well as melatonin, magnesium. It is such a great product. I love it so much. They also have a great hydration line. I love their recovery blend. It is so good. It's this refreshing lemon flavor. And anytime I have a big sweaty workout, I am chugging that stuff. Helps me feel replenished, my electrolytes replenished, and it's just really good. You guys can save when you go to beamorganics.com and use the code ANOTHER at checkout. You might want to check out their variety pack. They have a probiotic balance blend, a pre-workout, which is really fun, watermelon flavor, and then the recovery blend as well. And don't sleep on the Dream Blend. Get yourself some good sleep. Go to beamorganics.com and use the code ANOTHER at checkout. All right, back to the show. Yeah, it's been really interesting watching you get here too, because when you started getting healthy, and I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
I guess. I mean, I think so. Yeah, let's just say that.
Okay.
Feels that way to me.
It took you a while to get what we would call fast again, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You took your time and you went and ran. And I don't know, what did you run, like a 3:30 marathon at some point?
So when I realized all of this, I tried to force it for a little while and thought I was getting better. And I ran like a 3:25 at New York in 2015.
Okay.
So the PR was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Then things started to gradually I couldn't run as fast. I was sort of forcing it. I was trying to get better, but not really. I was doing it on my own. I hadn't found a therapist, was just kind of I don't know. It was just a suffer fest. Then I went to Boston in 2016 and I left my watch at home. Robert came with me. We were moving here and celebrating our 40th birthdays. I purposely left my watch at home. I don't even want to know. I just want to be in Boston and celebrate being there. And I ran a 4:09.
Love it.
I don't know that I could have run faster that day, truthfully. But I stopped and hugged and kissed my husband when I saw him in Wellesley. And, I had fun that day. And I would say that was the beginning of the healing. And we moved here. And I thought, actually, when I was in Boston, I sat down with my husband and James McCurdy. And I was thinking okay, I'm ready for this. I feel now I'm ready to be coached and go after this. So that was, almost 6 years ago?
Yeah.
5. Yes. Almost 6 years ago. And I said to James, I was I don't know if this is possible. Did I run that fast because I was that light and I was that extreme? I mean, I was running 100-mile weeks. And,
I can't imagine.
It was crazy. It was very different approach. This time, I think I peaked at 60, 62.
Oh, I thought you were closer to 70. Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And that's so funny. I don't even really know. I would have been able to tell you to the second. I was very much more obsessed with these things before. But David didn't really change. If I got higher mileage, it was because my long run was longer,
Right. Or it backed up.
Yeah. So just to go to show, you don't need to run 100-mile weeks. You don't need to, be 20 pounds lighter or whatever. Those are actually not as great for you. And James did say to me, he said, Jess, you did not succeed because of those things. You succeeded in spite of them. And so that was a pivotal moment for me. And it was important to me that Robert was there. And I did start to work with James, who is a great guy. But then I don't know, 3 months later, I started to have plantar issues. And that turned into a tear in my foot. And I had 9 months off of running at that point.
Wow.
I called it my foot baby.
Yeah.
I did. I had to have a procedure done called 10X to heal the tear in my foot. And so that was I obviously wasn't coached by James during that time. After that, I did half, just like to bring myself back, into running. I wasn't going to jump right into the marathon. And actually Mary coached me for that. Mary from Lift Run Perform.
Yeah, we all love Mary.
Yeah, I love Mary. Got to spend time with her this weekend too, which was awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, she's the best. And so she really helped me like believe in myself again. And then after that, I coached myself, and I was like, okay, that was really integral in my healing too. It was like, because all this time too, I was going to therapy and like learning how to trust myself. And this is all like, so I was anorexic, suffered, I don't even think that's the right word, but like had this pattern, behavioral pattern of disordered eating that truthfully started when I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like a coping mechanism that I turned to, over different periods of my life. And I walked into Leslie, my therapist's office in the fall of 2016 at age 40 and was like, do you even recover from this? Like, I don't know that I believe that it's possible, because I found that I thought I had, and then no one goes and says, I'm going to go be anorexic and really disordered. No one does that. It is not something you intentionally do. But this pattern kept showing up in my life at different, times. And the most recent was, in a stressful time. It's stressful having little kids, and my husband and I were, living with one income, and I mean, it was stressful. And I found running as a way to kind of cope with that. And then just gradually slipped into these old patterns, and running sadly like rewarded that in the short term. In the short term, yeah, you are going to run faster when you lose weight. But I didn't have any of those, other signs of like red S. Like I didn't have any bone injuries. I never lost my period. My doctors, I go for my regular checkups and they would say I was fine, even though it was clear I had dropped a significant amount of weight. So for a couple of years, I was like really not taking care of myself. And I realized on the other end of it, when I sort of woke up to this, that like, yeah, I had used eating disorder again and running. And so like, did this behavior show up as an obsession with running, and like, what would it be next? Eating disorder is like a form of addiction, and running can be too.
Oh, for sure.
And so Leslie, when I said that to her, she like right away, she was like, you can recover from this. It's recovery. And she was like, I have people in my office who are in their 70s, and I didn't want that to be me, and so I don't know, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but she really helped me learn how to have compassion for myself, how to forgive myself, and how to trust myself again, or maybe for the first time, to be honest with you. And so that was part of why I wanted to coach myself for that marathon. And I ran a 3:54.
Okay.
In Wrightsville Beach that I guess it was the spring of 2017.
I didn't know they had a marathon there.
Yeah, they do. So I did that, and then I didn't run another marathon for about 2 years. I ran Indy.
Yay.
And I ran a 3:37 there.
That's the year you stayed at my house, right?
Yeah. So I went from like in my comeback of when I really felt like I was getting healthy. It was 3 marathons in 5 years.
Yeah.
1 3:54, 1 3:37, 1 3:09.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, and someone actually, I posted about this on Instagram yesterday, and I, like at the end of my post, I thanked a lot of people who helped me on this journey. Like I worked with Tani Gibson, she does the Endurance Planet podcast, and she's like an angel in my life. She really, not only did she help me heal, like, and figure out what was going on with me, like physically, she was so compassionate about it. And that's what actually inspired me to like take a step further and find my therapist, Leslie. But we worked together. Leslie and I are still working together, but in the beginning I saw her every week. Right now I might see her every few months, and I like email her, we'll do a virtual call. Like it's not like it was in the beginning when I needed her to really hold my hand through the process. I worked with Tani for maybe, I don't know, several months. and I haven't worked with Tani again since then. At one point, I worked with James McCurdy. He was really helpful. I was with him when I ran my 3:37. Been working with David for over just about 2 years. I worked with Kylie, a nutritionist, for a few months to really hone in on like the fueling strategies. Like I wanted to nail my nutrition and not have to take a bathroom stop, not have to deal with any of that. But it wasn't like so someone wrote me yesterday and she was like, and I do Pilates and I do strength, all these things. And I have my PT and my chiropractor. And I'm like, I'm an elite athlete who can just like spend all the money and do all the things. And it's just like not like that, And so she was like, what if there was one thing you could do,
Sure.
She's like, I'm a single mom. And I was like, okay, first of all, this took me 8 years.
Right.
And I don't do all these things. Like right now I have my running coach.
Yeah.
And I see my PT, we call it Search and Destroy. I go like once a month.
Which I think
check in.
If you can afford that, I think it's
and honestly, like
during your training, like
that's I
really
pay
smart.
out of pocket for it because it's more affordable to me. It's not outrageous. Like he has a little package, and it's way better. When I went through what I went through with my foot, I don't want to tell you how much money I had to spend.
Right, like preventative
to figure
care.
out what was wrong,
Yeah.
to get different specialists to look at it. Then I had to have 2 different MRIs. Like, it's way more expensive to actually be heard.
Right.
Than it is
if you really think about it that way.
Go see my PT once a month and just make sure I'm, but
Search and Destroy. I love that.
That's what I call it. Yeah. Because, there's always something in our bodies that like could be off. And, certainly for me I'm almost 46. So, I really do my homework. I'm always doing my PT exercises, my Pilates exercises, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't want it to like seem like, oh yeah, the only way to achieve what I achieved is this. But I do think I told her therapy. I said, start there because I personally don't think I would have had even the self-belief, the self-trust to go down the road, if I hadn't. And, that I would say is the most important place to start is what I told her. But, it's not like you have to do all the things all at once. I mean, I'm not a professional athlete. It is like a practice for me. It's part of how I do life. And, that's sort of where that came from. But I wanted to make sure too on the podcast that it was clear that like,
I know,
it's not like, oh yeah, you need to do all these things and spend all this money. You don't, but piece it together. And, a couple months working with a nutritionist, a registered dietitian is what I would recommend.
If you can at least get a plan in place. Yeah,
exactly. And just understand, it is a slow process and you're going to have setbacks. I broke 2 toes a month and a half ago. I DNF'd a race because it just didn't feel right. I wasn't injured, but I knew it would have, I really don't think I would have been at CIM if I had run that whole race. My body was tight. It didn't feel right.
That was a brave thing to do. And I don't mean that in a way that like, I don't mean to put running on a pedestal like, oh, you're so brave. You DNF to race. Just like, you were saying about like hiring all the people. It's like,
right.
Yes, we get it. This is just running. But I think that if I were training for a marathon like you were CIM, it would have been really hard for me to like swallow my pride and like DNF.
Yeah. I think I would have said that too, but in the moment I just knew my body just felt so tight.
What do you think it was?
Well, I think my SI joint was like, it shifted into a different position. I had traveled a bunch the week before. I went to Chicago. We think maybe like I had seen my PT after, and we think maybe it could have been even hormonal. Just like my joints were more lax than they usually are, which is interesting. And just like at this stage of life, like perimenopausal, I have no idea, but, I don't know if that's what it is, but based on what I've learned from like, Stacey Sims and just being a female athlete and working with female athletes, like, that certain periods of your cycle, you're going to have more laxity in your joints. And I think that combined with tight muscles, like it it just did. All I can say is like, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I was hurt, but I just felt tight. Like I couldn't find fluidity in my body. And even after a few miles. And so I was with my friend and co-coach Amy. And I told her, I was like, I think I need to stop. Like this, I can't believe I'm doing this, but this does not feel right. And she was like, okay. And so it was so weird. I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
But we stepped to the side and we walked back.
I mean, yeah. Like, can you imagine had you finished and like injured something and then this whole CIM experience?
Oh my gosh. Like, yeah. And it was so bizarre because 2 days later I was like back to feeling like myself, but that day was not my day. And it is just a reminder. Sometimes that day is not your day.
Isn't that annoying about race day?
Yeah, it is
annoying.
It's so annoying. I had an athlete on Sunday who DNF'd. And I'm so proud of her. And I think that she said to me, like, knowing like you just did that and like, look what you did today. Like, and she didn't know what my result was when she made the decision. But I did tell everyone on my team, like, sometimes it's not our day. And we have to keep the big picture in mind, not just because like, yeah, it's only running and like, but also because it is running and running matters to us. And is it really worth it to hurt yourself and then not be able to, you know, have the experience that, you know, you're capable of just because like you know, we don't wake up in the same body every morning. We just don't. Sometimes we sleep funky or not at all, or we, you know, different periods of our hormonal cycle, or I think even that day the weather was impacting me. It was the first like cold morning and I don't do well in the cold. That's something I know about myself. And I don't think I warmed up enough. And I was kind of hoping the first few miles would have felt like a warm up, but it was in Durham, which is super hilly. And I just think like there were too many hills too soon. My body was like, no, this is not going to fly. So you should stop.
You know, I think that one time somebody ridiculed me for like talking about age too much on the podcast, but it's something I like. I don't know if ridicule is the right word, but they said they got annoyed that I talked about age so much. And it's something I think about a lot. I probably think about age more than most people, but I'm super inspired that you did this at 45, you know, at 38. And I think about the way I talk about age now. I'm like 5 years ago, you know, I thought, you know, 33 seemed older to me now. Now I'm 38 and I'm going to be 45. Yeah. You know, you are 7 years ahead of me. And oftentimes I think about it and I'm like, am I done trying to run fast?
Right.
Am I just done? Because I always thought after my last baby, like that would be the time to like ramp things up and run hard again. And I would squeeze in PRs between babies and things like that. But I have to say now that my youngest is 3, I still just like want to run for fun.
Yeah.
And I throw down a tempo run every once in a while, but I don't feel like running super fast and lots of miles. And I'm like, am I letting it go? Am I gonna run? Am I gonna want to race a marathon again? But seeing what you did, like after that, like 7-year process, 8-year process at 45, in such a healthy way, not overtraining. I'm like, oh, maybe you should just, because I thought I need to get it in. I always thought like
what if I'm running out of time?
I'm running out of time. Like I need to get it done so that like I can be like, yes, I ran that 3:05 or whatever it is, and I'm satisfied. So then I can just hang it up. But I'm like, well, maybe, you know, your youngest is 3. You don't have babies anymore, but maybe you do just need to like enjoy.
I think you need to enjoy it. I feel like what this has taught me, is like it's all about who knows what's possible. You know, I actually don't think that like that's the fastest I'll ever run.
No,
you know,
no
I
way.
just like know that. And there's no ticking clock. Like, I don't know what the road ahead is, but I know that my best chances of like discovering that are to just have fun and be in the moment and do what feels right to me, my heart and my body. So like where you are right now, running for fun, that's what you should be doing. There isn't any like shoulding necessarily in this. And, also like, it's kind of funny because PR, like we celebrate our PR, and we're super happy with it. And then, then you wonder, you're like, I wonder what else I could do. And so like, I think it's really important to be like, to really be present with that. It's not about the number. When I was like, my first marathon took me over 5.5 hours.
Wow.
That was 21 years ago. This was my 22nd marathon on Sunday, and I ran it in a 3:09. So 2.5 hours basically faster. And I would never have known that I was capable of a 3:09 if I like hadn't just continued to engage in the process, to enjoy it, to be curious, to have fun with it. Those are the moments that I feel like where I inspired myself. Like, because I think when I started focusing on the numbers, I didn't enjoy it as much. I mean, even though I did run the PR, like I said, I was curled up in the fetal position and like really sick, and so what is that worth a number? No, it's definitely not. And I think it's just so fun to like do this thing and find out what, I mean, it's like it's an adventure. Yeah. I mean, I just think don't put any timelines on yourself. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's different, and your body is most likely like really appreciating this restful time. Like, I know you're still like super busy and taking care of kids and all of that, but there's a difference when you have to do that stuff. Right. And so if you give yourself these periods, like that's why I didn't do marathon for 2 years each time,
Hey friends, a quick break here. Go get yourself some Gooder shades. This is my favorite sunglass because it's affordable and they have super cute options and they don't slip around when you run. I wear my Gooder shades every day. I'm kind of a sunglass freak, actually. I always have sunglasses. If they're not on my face, they're on my head. I never leave the house without my sunglasses. And Gooder has all sorts of different models. They have really fun colors and designs, really cute basic models as well. I love their aviators and I love their runway shades. The Breakfast Run to Tiffany's is one of my favorite sunglasses that I wear on a regular basis. You all can save when you go to gooder.com/another and use the code another15. That's another 15 at checkout, and that'll save you 15% off your order. All right, friends, back to the show. I mean, and it's like I was just saying to Glenn on Saturday, what did we do? Oh, we just, at like 8:30, we went downtown and got bagels and came back, and I lifted weights at like 1 p.m. Yeah. And like jogged a mile to warm up. And then I ran on Sunday, and it like, there was a point in life where it was like, no, you run long on Saturday mornings. You know what I mean? Right. And I was like, oh, it's so nice to just like work out. I work out like 6 days a week. Yeah. And I do like a healthy amount, sometimes I do an hour, sometimes I do 30. Like this morning I did literally probably 35 minutes. I did 15 minutes on the bike and I lifted my arms, and I got showered before, I needed to go watch Russell's Christmas performance. But my point is like, it's just so nice to be like, I am committed to being active, and like, that's what my body feels good doing. I like to get a extra exertion where I'm like running those faster times, like maybe once a week. And I'm just healthy. Like I just, Yeah,
I think that, sometimes like I would say for me, I am very goal motivated. And so it's not, I mean, I'm enjoying my taper right now and like putting real clothes on and stuff like that. But I thrive off of that structure. Like I know that it's not about having a goal it doesn't need to be a goal to run my fastest ever. But I want something there that I feel like gives me structure because I like the rhythm and the routine. I don't know, like that my personality would be able to do what you're doing.
Just wake up in the morning and think, oh, what
no, I
like
love plans and calendars and organizing. Like I thrive off of that. And I mean, I just get so excited to see what David has planned for me. And it's, even though right now it's rest and eating a lot, like, it's just kind of like what gives me like rhythm and structure to my day and ensures that I do prioritize yes, my health, but also like my mental and emotional like clarity and space. It's like if I were a plant, it's how I water myself. Like, so I totally appreciate what you're saying. I just don't know that it would work for me.
Well, and that is true. That is what I'm doing. I'm watering myself.
Yeah,
when I do it. I know when I wake up in the morning, I'm probably going to take one rest day a week, maybe two. Mm-hmm. So I know that there'll be something that's done, but it's not planned or structured. It's like, oh, I didn't run yesterday, so I'll probably I usually commit to like 5 miles and then maybe I do 7. Like I'm just
I am so much more like,
you want to know like what's on the schedule today when I wake up.
Yeah, it's totally.
See, that stresses me out. Like because I think I have a commitment phobia. That's why hiring a coach or anything like that, I'm like, I can't do that. Like I need to be the author of this. Okay, so real quick, let's talk about David's training philosophy, because I love that he doesn't give you paces. It's all based on effort. He knows what your goals are though.
Yeah.
And so I love that. And I tell, I coach a very small handful of athletes myself, but like, that's what I'm always like, effort.
Yeah.
You have to think about that, like with the hills and the heat and all the things. How did you have faith in that plan though?
I mean, it was working.
Yeah.
So I generally tend to run by effort anyways. I was more curious. It got like when I got to, I would say like the last probably 6 weeks of my training block, we started doing more marathon specific long runs.
But he's still telling you effort, not paces.
Totally. He's saying marathon effort.
He's not saying 7:09.
Never once. Nope. And so, and like, I mean, I've been running for long enough that like, I generally know what that should feel like.
Yeah.
But like it's just funny. Like I didn't have a race results much to go off of. Like when I get sciencey and I want to see like, okay, I didn't do that half. I think if I had done that half, I would have probably been like more focused on a number, which so maybe it's a godsend too that like I didn't.
Because what if you would have run like a 137?
Who knows?
Like how am I going to do a 309?
Like and that was really hilly. Like who knows? But yeah, like I trusted it because I felt so good the whole time. When he told me marathon effort, like there were some runs where I did like a mile on, a mile easy, a mile marathon, a mile easy, and I would do like maybe 4 sets of that inside a long run, or I would do one workout. I remember this was the confidence builder for me. I think I did 10 miles at marathon inside a long run of like, I think it was supposed to be 21-mile long run with 10 at marathon, and then like a mile or 2 easy, and then 2 what he described as hard.
10K.
Like, yeah. And those 2 were like sub 7.
Yeah.
And the marathon ones were all, like I said, like I was on the Tobacco Trail, which has some like gentle rollers, which I think was a great place to do those long runs for me, especially for a race like CIM. But like my paces ranged from like 7:05 to 7, I think in the 7:20s, because sometimes there was like a lot more climbing.
And you can't get in your head about that.
I couldn't get in my head about that. And I remember responding to him and just being like, this was what the paces were. I always tell him my paces, and even though he's like just doesn't care, but I always do, because I would say I coach and I run with like a hybrid of like effort, and I like just when you're trying to race a marathon, like I just think it's helpful to know, because I do want my athletes, I want to make sure they don't go out too fast. And
and some people might really need to think about paces.
Need to just understand like how to correlate what this feels like to what it looks like. And like the numbers are going to be changing as we get fitter, or as we come back from a setback and whatnot, or as the heat comes through and things like that. But practicing that like ability to correlate has really helped me. And so when I told him the numbers, I knew he knew my goal, because he was like, perfect, this is exactly where we want to be. And so he would give me that reassurance that like, I know your goal. I know you've got this. We're in the right place. He never said, we might need to readjust the goal. Like, nothing like that. Even like days before my race, I told him, I was like, here's what I'm thinking about my execution for CIM. Like, what do you think? And he wrote me back. He was like, don't overthink it. This race is all about celebration and love.
I love him.
And I was like, okay. And so it just made me smile. And I was like, he's totally freaking right. I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to go for it. And I did. And so I think David's coaching philosophy is absolutely hits the nail on the head. It's totally right for me. And it's, for someone like I am totally type A, like I can definitely overthink things. And he's just such a great balance for that with me. I appreciate like he mandates rest once a week for sure. I wanted that because I mandate that as well as a
I'm
coach.
all for that one day
I know
a week
I need
rest.
it. There were times when I was coached before where it was like I knew I could run more, and so they had me running more. And maybe in the moment it was okay, but then things started to get not okay, and it doesn't always show up while you're doing it, right? And so when I reached out to David to ask him if he would coach me, that was a big reason why, is I knew his philosophy on that, and it's just totally jived for me.
I mean, listen, everybody, if Jared Ward can take every Sunday off,
yeah,
we can all take a rest day.
Totally.
I mean, I get it. There's something to be said for running on fatigued legs in order to train for a marathon.
You
but
can do that. I did that every Sunday was my day after my long run, and I would do, David always would have me do like a moderate distance, anywhere from like 8 to even as much as like 12 miles.
Listen, Jess and I went for a run on a Sunday, and she had run that 21 miler the day before. I think that was the day you did with 16, 90% effort or something like that. And I was like, I can do probably 6 to 8, just because of where I am in life, like training wise, but B, time, because I had to get back for something. And you're like, I think I'm just going to do 10. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you ran 21 miles yesterday and you're going to run 10 today.
Yeah. And then Monday I got to take the day off. And that's also too, like, part of what I think I love about marathon training or just run training in general, and why even if I don't like have a specific goal, like I'm going to be having a plan, because I love the rhythm. Like Monday is always my rest day. Is that
always your rest day?
Always my rest day.
That's a good day to rest.
It's the best day to rest, especially as like a working mom. Like I love it. And then Friday is always like just 4 miles.
That's nice.
Sometimes I think we got up to like 6 during like the peak of my training, but it's a short run.
I love that.
And he usually writes in there or rest or cross train. Like I have option on that day. I almost always run, but not always. I have taken like unplanned rest days just when I felt like I needed it. I think that's the biggest area of growth from like a running specific standpoint. Training is like honoring my body and my like mental and emotional state. Like if it's not what I need, it's always okay to, it's like an insurance policy, and so I'm a firm believer in that for sure.
Man, there's something really refreshing too about taking your rest day on Monday, because part of me is like, I like to get the week started off with a good workout, but also part of me is like, it's kind of refreshing to not have a commitment, right? Like,
oh, I love it. I get my whole life in order. Yeah. I can plan my whole week. Yeah. I get like, a lot of stuff done on Mondays. It's great. I think like, and it's not like that big of a time chunk, but I'm not getting out. I'm not worrying about my run in the morning. So it's just great, because I do my running usually in the morning. So it's just a nice way to start the day and the week. I love it.
Yeah. I'm a big 9:30. I know this is like probably annoying to some people, and it's like like if you have a normal hour job,
right,
like can't do it, but like getting my kids dropped off at school and working out from like 9:30 to 10:30, that's totally my jam, because I want to be up for like a good 2-3 hours before I go hit it.
Totally.
So like looking back, this has been like such a process. I mean, that's what I kept saying when I was like, seeing your pictures, and I was even texting other friends about you, like Ashley.
She texted.
Oh, she did.
It was awesome. Like you hear from everybody.
Yeah.
so great.
And I was just like, that whole group of girls, I was like, this is like so much more than like you running a 3:09 marathon. Mm-hmm. There's just like so much wrapped into this.
Yeah.
And so if you were like looking back on the last 8 years, like what would you say to your 8-year ago self and then your 3-year ago self? You know what I mean?
That's a really good question. I think, I don't know. I mean, I think like 8 years ago, like 6 to 8 years ago, I would have just wanted her to know that she could trust the slow road. It's kind of one of those things like if you're lucky, the time is going to pass no matter how you choose to spend it, right? And so like every day is a choice. And you know you're going to choose what is right for you. And that can be really scary because there are no guarantees and there's no shortcuts. You know, I tried shortcuts, not really intentionally, but that's what I was doing, right? And it did not lead me to a beautiful road. So like take the long way, I guess, like trust that slow road. 3 years ago, let's see, different world too. No pandemic yet.
Sure.
You know, so I think I had a broken toe 3 years ago. I had a broken toe twice in the last like 3 years. Just knocking it into a wall in my house both times.
You were probably thinking, what is going on, man?
Yeah, like I think like I needed to know then that like I actually do believe now looking back that those things didn't happen to me. They happened for me. I think my body needed those like forced breaks, and they weren't running injuries, but it was like a, you know, almost like a way to protect myself from overdoing it because I was eager.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe moving too quick, like trying to do too much. In both of those cases, like literally I was like, my head was there and my feet were there, you know? And so there were moments where I was like, okay, like you need to trust this process and like trust your setbacks too. Because they're blips. Mm-hmm. They're blips, you know, and they do teach you to have a lot more appreciation for where you're at, you know, when you get through them.
They don't feel like blips in the moment, but they are.
No, they're so annoying and they can be so disheartening. I mean, like my foot baby, as I called it, 9 months was a long time.
That's a long freaking time.
That was a long time. And I mean, I got into swimming. I was like, at that point I remember just wondering if I would ever be a distance runner again. You know, I didn't really know what was going on with my foot. I didn't know if it would get fixed. I have like, you know, nothing is guaranteed, you know, so soak it up and like just really honor your body. And I'm glad that I learned how to do that. Albeit maybe the hard way. I wouldn't necessarily wish that upon anyone, you know, to take those like wrong turns, so to speak. But at the same time, like that's what I needed in order to go the right way. So I think I would tell myself like, it's okay. You're on the right path.
Do you struggle with the eating ever?
I really don't.
That's amazing.
I really don't but struggle would just not be the right word.
Okay.
Like, I don't think about it. I don't think about it like I did before at all. Like it's not like that, but I know that it is a pattern inside of me that it's not something I get rid of. This is my philosophy on it and like my experience. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I don't want to project that onto anyone else, but like the way my therapist has helped me see it, and like mostly what she's done with me is cognitive behavioral therapy, which I actually think also has helped a ton with my running, like just repatterning your brain and like how you talk to yourself and what your mindset is in any challenging moment. And so I've been able to apply that to my relationship to stressful situations where I can see, like she kind of described it like I have a toolbox when life is hard, right? And inside that toolbox are ways to manage the hard stuff in life. And one of the tools that I developed as a young girl was eating disorder. You know, I suppressed my appetite and didn't eat due to like stressful environment and traumas in my childhood, I was someone that withdrew. That was my strategy. So like I actually have this memory of going underneath the kitchen table during like a stressful time in my family. And I like through my work with Leslie, it was this like aha moment of like, oh my gosh, I've been going under the kitchen table my whole life. Like this is hard. I'm scared. I'll make myself smaller and like disappear. Mm-hmm. And like I don't want to get like too emotional here, but that was like this, like she really took me through this journey of like loving that little girl and learning like instead of having shame around like, oh Jess, that's like, why are you doing this to yourself and like hurting everyone who loves you because you're hurting yourself, right? But like it's because that was like a behavior in my little girl self. She didn't really know what else to do, you know? And so that pattern is inside of me. Mm-hmm. And so Leslie was like, love yourself through that. No, like you can't take this tool out of the bag and throw it away. It's part of you. And it's part of what makes you a beautiful person. It's part of what makes you human. And so don't try to like should your way out of it or shame yourself or any of that. Like you have to love yourself. So I can look in that tool bag in those moments and I can see it there. Mm. Sometimes I can feel myself like, you know, going there, you know, if like, you know, during the holidays, for example, like over Thanksgiving, that could feel really stressful. But it was actually a really wonderful time because I didn't take it. I didn't use it, you know? And I can find other ways of like setting boundaries and having like healthy coping mechanisms, talking to Robert, people that I love, my mom and my sisters, like, you know, I can choose something different. So for me, it's not like I don't ever really think of it as like, I am putting it in the past tense. Like I am recovered. I am aware of my recovery and I am aware of like who I am in a whole new way. So I can choose something better for myself. Wow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So that's how I'm like, I'm sort of like thinking out loud and trying to explain it, but
it totally does. You know, it's like so interesting to think about like as a parent. You just always thought like when you were a kid that your parents like just had stuff figured out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like I saw a meme or something somewhere that, or somebody shared something on Instagram that was like one of the hardest parts of like motherhood is like you're trying to help these little humans like come into their own being and be their own like awesome selves and grow into this human adult or whatever once they get there. Well, you're also still like
growing up yourself,
discovering all these things about yourself and like figuring it all out yourself. Yeah. Like even at 38, even at 45, like we're still figuring it out.
Totally.
But you didn't think that mom knows all, you know, when you're a little kid.
Like so different. I'm finishing up reading that book, Grit by Angela Duckworth. Have you read it?
I started it on audio and got bored.
Okay.
Maybe I should read
loving it. Okay. I'm almost done with it, but she actually has like a whole section on grit for parenting.
I think Tina Muir has had her on her podcast.
Oh, cool. I'll have to listen to that. Well, she talked about like the origin of the word parenting. I think it's like to bring forth, which I loved. But like she was saying how like, you know, we're still in the process of growing up, and like back in, I think in like the 20s, it was like, do not cuddle your children, do not,
totally,
you know, it was like these crazy rules. And now it's like we talk to our kids about, you know, how they're feeling. Yep. We encourage them to just try to put forth the effort. It's not about the result. And like, I mean, it's like the whole world around parenting has
it's totally changed,
you know. And I feel like I'm just so grateful I'm like in the now instead of in the 20s, because I don't think that would have like flown for me at all as a mom or a kid. But you know, it's just so interesting how like I am really vulnerable with my kids, and at like even with the marathon thing, like I called them when we got back to the hotel and got on FaceTime, and I was like, because they all stayed home, and like my sister watched them, and the dog too, and I was just like so grateful to everybody for letting Robert and I, doing that for us. And I said to Abby, my daughter, who's 16, I was like, thank you for supporting me in my crazy dreams. And she doesn't run. And she was like, Mama, I love your dreams. Like, it's not, I'm so proud of you. Her friends were texting me. Her friends were tracking me. I got a text from one of her friends. Great job, Jay Bunny. That's what they call me. Like, marathon queen. And it's just like so awesome. I mean, we have to share these things. We have to talk about it. And I'm so thankful that my kids can see me put myself out there and try.
I mean, it's so important for us to show our kids. Like, I think, Glenn, my husband, if anybody knows him, like, he would like roll his eyes at me saying this, like, oh, you're always so like emotional about things and out there. But like, it truly is so important for our kids to see us like pursue dreams,
Totally.
And I struggle with that sometimes, like when I have interviews or things like that, and I feel guilty because I'm like something's scheduled right when they get home, and I'm like, I feel like I should be like pouring into them. But like, that's so important for them to see, like, no, like I'm a person too outside of being your mom, and I need to pursue these goals, and for them to see that is important. But side note, your kids are so awesome. When we first came to visit Raleigh, we went to Jess's house like for an afternoon and hung out, and I was like, I don't know that I've ever been in the presence of like teenagers that were that engaging with me. Aww. And they didn't even know me.
They're so awesome.
Especially Will, because he's a boy. Yeah. Like, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't generalize that. But like, he sat there and he was like conversational, and you can't expect that out of every kid. Part of that's nature, part of that's nurture. But like, it was very like, I don't know. It made me feel less scared of the teenage years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are really fun.
And I know you'll say it's not
everything. Yeah, totally. But you know what it is? We talk about it. And so that makes it less scary for me. Is like I mean, it's hard, but Abby actually took the SAT on Saturday while we were in California, which like wasn't great timing, but we didn't know that when we made the plans, and then turned out. And so like that was stressful. My daughter's taking the SAT. She has test anxiety just like I did. I had to take it like 3 times and get a tutor, and you
don't even want to know what I scored on the SAT.
Like that was stressful. She just did a great job, and she wasn't like freaking out at all, but we talked about it. And so I think like, I guess I feel like, we're like going on a tangent with this, but one thing that has really worked for me and my husband is just everything, like we see them, it's our job to like help show them the path, not take them on the path. You know what I mean? Like and in order to do that, like we have to talk about stuff, and so sometimes those conversations are hard, and ultimately though, like we're all in it together. Yeah. So yeah, they're awesome. Thank you.
We were on a run the other day, and Abby called.
Oh, when she called,
and I'm like, "Hi, Abby." She's like, "Oh, hi, Lindsay." Like just like so friendly, and just I don't know. They're great kids. But you guys, another podcast. We'll have Jess on is for Why Is Everyone Yelling. I've thought about that. I'm like, I actually should have you on Why Is Everyone Yelling, because you're like a few steps ahead of me. Jess's youngest is a little bit older than my oldest. Yep. So he's 10, right? Yeah. And my oldest is 9. So, and I've watched this from, we've been following each other online since Gus was probably like 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is crazy. Like or maybe even 1.
Maybe even 1. I was just thinking.
Like he was.
Because I kind of think I remember when you were pregnant.
Yeah, with Marshall for the first time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys all go follow Jess Pace of Me on Instagram. She has a great coaching situation going on with Amy, who's also a local Raleigh so runner. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's fun to talk about.
I love it. So excited for you. All right, friends. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for being here today. Thank you, Jess, for sharing your story. I know you helped somebody today. I mean, it's really just such a beautiful, beautiful story, and I'm so freaking proud of you. Don't forget to follow Jess on social media. She is Pace of Me over there. And check out her art business, We Run on Art. What an incredible woman. I'm so grateful I get to call her my friend. You can find me on Instagram as well. I'm Lindsay Hine 626. Go check out that post CIM interview I did with Sarah Vaughn over there. That was super fun. I hope that you are having a restful December, gearing up for the holidays. I'm so grateful that you choose to spend your time with me every week. Or if you're new here, welcome. I'm grateful to have you. This podcast is part of the Sandy Boy Productions Podcast Network, which is my sweet little network that I started last year. I guess I started in 2019, but it's been a slow grow. And we just have a brand new website that we had built. If you go to sandyboyproductions.com, you can browse around on there and see everything we have to offer, as well as the other shows in the network, including my podcast for parents. Why is everyone yelling? I think I need to have Jess and her daughter Abby on the show, because it's always great to hear from parents that are just a few steps ahead of you, right? Okay, grateful for you. Have a great day, a wonderful Friday, a wonderful rest of your weekend. Congrats if you ran CIM. And as always, we'll see you next Friday.